Second time is indeed the charm. I put the wrong time on. Put the wrong time on. Hence, a few people in the chat an hour ago. Absolute mad lads. I was here also and then just like realized, oh, the qualifying isn't starting anytime soon. And then looked, and yeah, you'd kind of reminded me that I'd made a slight error in my judgment there. 9:30 it is now in the UK, but we are back, we are live, we are ready and raring to go for the Mexican Grand Prix qualifying. Hydrate. And we're back. How are we all feeling? Hello, Mars Boy. 2 hands in the chat. Sarah's here as well. Nico, hello, hello, hello. Lofi in there also. Alex, how we doing? Let's go. It's qualifying, baby. It is indeed. Couple of bits to talk about before we delve into qualifying, but it's been a fairly chill free practice 3, to be honest with you. A lot of the talking points came from free practice 1, but we actually live streamed free practice 1 yesterday, so you should have been here for that. You weren't here for that. You can still pop over there. I talked through all of the news from this week's kind of Formula 1 news cycle, as well as sort of going through free practice 1. If you don't want to watch free practice 1 again, you can skip to the final half an hour or so where I go through a couple of bits and pieces related to Liam Lawson, related to McLaren, related to various topics, Valtteri Bottas included, and whether or not he might make his way back to Mercedes sometime soon, or if he will indeed fill that final Stake Sauber seat. But let's get set up a little bit here for myself. Need to get my bits and pieces going. It's gonna load. Maybe. Any news on the McLaren appeal? That is a perfect question and an incredible segue. Shall we talk about the news stories? Oh, there's Fernando Alonso, which Fernando Alonso we can talk about again if you want to, but he's 400 race starts. I talked about it at the beginning of yesterday's live stream. This was the picture I wanted. Indeed. McLaren did try and appeal to the FIA, to the stewards, and unfortunately, McLaren's petition to review Lando Norris's 5-second penalty in the Formula One's United States Grand Prix has been rejected by the stewards. I think they came in and they were pushed out very, very swiftly by the stewards, the McLaren team. McLaren attempted to argue effectively that the stewards should have viewed the incident from the perspective that Lando Norris had already passed Max Verstappen. So that was the new information or the new territory that they wanted to go down. And they decided, actually, reviewing the footage, we think that Lando Norris was ahead of Max Verstappen, and therefore this incident should have been treated as if Lando Norris was ahead of Verstappen. But the stewards were kind of like, okay, yes, he was ahead for a moment, but he wasn't necessarily the driver ahead going into the corner. You know, the way that the rules are written, going into the corner at the apex, it's all quite vague, to be honest with you, isn't it? And that's what McLaren were trying to appeal around. They were saying, well, Lando Norris got ahead on the straight, so therefore going into the corner, he was ahead. And that was basically McLaren's big push to try and get Lando Norris that 3rd place back in the United States. It didn't come off. The stewards went through it all. They brought Max Verstappen in, they brought Red Bull in, they brought the McLaren team in. They went through all of the footage once again. And they decided on exactly the same thing. I do want to get your guys' thoughts and feelings on this, though, because technically, because it was a 5-second penalty and because it was given during the race, I don't think you're actually allowed to appeal it. I've been trying to look into this, and there was an article on the race a little bit earlier on that I was reading when I was wandering around Morrison's, so I didn't take it in fully, not going to lie to you, but I'm pretty sure that kind of penalty that is given during the race is kind of a hard and fast penalty, which does highlight maybe an issue in that, right? That the fact that if you're given a penalty during the race, if you're a steward, you're kind of incentivized to give a penalty during the race rather than looking into it after the fact and maybe giving it a bit more due diligence. You could kind of argue, you know, they're just going to rush to a final opinion because it means they don't have to go through the rigmarole of trying to prove every single little nook and cranny. If they just give a 5-second penalty there and then, it's done. And they can just kind of get on with it from that perspective. So I think that's quite interesting and maybe something that will be reviewed. But I think Max Verstappen, I know he was on the kind of other side of the coin in this incident, but I think he put it quite well when he talked about the fact that we put in more and more rules, and then after the rules go in, we complain that there are too many rules, so we remove rules, and then we have an incident that isn't covered by the rules, so we add in more rules, and then we get annoyed at the rules that we put in, so we take out rules. It's a never-ending cycle, and Max Verstappen basically just said, Formula One's rules are always going to change, so you're always going to have to adapt, and I think he is the absolute king of being right on the edge of what is allowed within the rule book, isn't he? Like, Max Verstappen studies the stewards in the FIA diligently because he always seems to know exactly the wording, and inside the car he seems to be able to just turn that into the perfect little to and fro. Like he said himself, he's been caught out by overtaking off track before. Obviously, he was caught out with Charles Leclerc. Turn 1 in Vegas, people were kind of talking about turn 1 in Austin versus turn 1 in Vegas, but I think that's a little bit of a nuanced again because the turn is so different. Vegas is a very looping corner, whereas at Austin, it's a very sharp sort of turn in to the left. It is always going to be this way with the stewards. You can appeal it. Yeah, I think there's a... It's the wording. Hang on. Let me find the article. Because I remember it being put very, very well. Has no perfect answer. So you can reopen the decision, but the decisions themselves... So you can appeal the decision within a certain amount of time, but it's just all very like there's no real clarity when it came to it. However, it's done and dusted now, isn't it? It's been put to bed. They attempted to review it. They attempted arguing that the details going into it, McLaren believed that there was erroneous stewards decision making that had been done, but the statement itself, even though they had new evidence, which I'm sort of a bit skeptical of. I know I'm supposed to be a little bit biased here because I'm a McLaren fan, but I don't think that the new evidence they had was really anything to go off of. So therefore, it was handed back to them fairly swiftly, and we will not see any change to the final order that we got from Austin a couple of weeks ago. A week ago, sorry, in this triple header. So yeah, appeal went in from McLaren, but unfortunately has now failed, and that's it. That's kind of the end of that. Although it is quite interesting that sort of beyond that, Max Verstappen is having issues of himself issues himself this weekend. Can you tell us a late one? Goodness gracious. Verstappen's having real engine troubles, and it's a big concern going into this weekend, I think, for Max Verstappen. Obviously, the Mexican Grand Prix is quite tough on the engines anyway, just due to the altitude that they have the race at. It's one of those races where a lot of the drivers and a lot of the technical team talk about the fact that the engine isn't getting enough oxygen. You need oxygen to burn the fuel that is inside of the car, and when you don't have enough oxygen going into the fuel, it just doesn't work. And Max Verstappen has suffered a lot this weekend. In free practice 1, he suffered power loss, and his Honda engine just kind of seemed to give up. And then in free practice 2, the Red Bull didn't even get a full run. Like, if you look at the free practice 2 timings, Max Verstappen was nowhere to be seen. And although he completed 4 laps, setting a representative time, no. And didn't really get to have a go on the brand new Pirelli tyres for the weekend either, or the old Pirelli tyres, because they were running a mixture of Pirelli tyres for free practice 2. So Max Verstappen missed out on any running in free practice 1, really, any running in free practice 2, and now is having a real tough weekend ahead of him, you would say. weird noises coming from the engine. He described it as very disturbing from inside of the car. And I think the big thing is that he has already taken a grid penalty for an extra engine change so far this year. He took it at Spa. If you remember, he put the Red Bull on pole position, but started sort of in the middle of the pack because he had taken that engine penalty. So if he's faced with another engine penalty, I know it's a very small line, but it's a silver lining nonetheless for the McLaren team and Lando Norris if they are going to get into this championship battle. I think we do now need a Lando Norris victory followed by Max Verstappen DNF for it to really happen. I think Austin was the first nail in the coffin of this title battle, and the only way that Lando Norris is going to be able to take that nail back out of the coffin is to get a victory, and Max Verstappen to have a really, really tough weekend. Is looking a little bit better though for Lando Norris and team. The free practice three timings, much more in their favor. Max Verstappen was back out on the track though, having fixed those engine issues. But Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris quickest of anybody, and usurping the Ferraris. The Ferraris are looking really, really good in free practice 1 and free practice 2. And I think now it could be that kind of three-way battle again. We could see Verstappen in there, both of the McLarens, both of the Ferraris. The Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton was in 5th there. Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson running incredibly well. Obviously, this is a track that really suits the RB AlphaTauri package. You know, we've seen it in the past. It was Daniel Ricciardo's best race last season. Yuki Tsunoda was also running really, really well here last year until he hit into Oscar Piastri. So this is a track that really does suit them. Kevin Magnussen trying to be the man to sort of save Haas and keep them ahead in the constructors' standings. But I think this is going to be a weekend that swings in RB's favour, which just makes that battle for 6th place in the constructor standings even more exciting, right? Like last weekend was super Haas-centric, a very Haas-centered track. Liam Lawson did his best to pick up a couple of points to keep them in the mix. Now it's kind of swung the other way. This track is very RB-centric, and therefore it feels like they're the ones that are going to pick up a major chunk of points this weekend if things go well, and it's going to be Haas that needs to kind of bounce back. But then actually looking at the next few races, you'd say that Haas probably suit Vegas a little bit better. Qatar maybe then suits RB and Haas pretty similarly. Abu Dhabi, Yuki Tsunoda usually goes well at. So that race between Haas and RB definitely isn't over. And it's going to be super, super close between the two of them in the constructor standings. But back to Mercedes in this mix. And I'm a little bit concerned because George Russell has been in the barriers again, obviously during free practice 2. As I said, not really much happened during free practice 3, but during free practice 2, we had another big crash. Obviously, Alex Albon in free practice 1 after his coming together with Ollie Behrman. Free practice 2 now, George Russell just again puts it in the barriers. And, you know, he was top of the timing sheets in free practice 1. He did really well. And then 20 minutes into the Pirelli tyre test, just completely loses it at turn 9, crashes massive. Like, it was a big shunt once again for the Mercedes team. And already, you know, he'd destroyed a floor last time out in America, had to use the spare floor for the actual Grand Prix itself. Didn't go too badly, ended up still picking up some points from the pit lane. But now he's smashed up another Mercedes car and is getting to the point now where this triple header, which remember is very far away from the Mercedes base in the United Kingdom, is becoming quite a pricey one for the Mercedes team and George Russell. The car bottomed out at the turn 8 curb and just careered off. And I think it's one of those things, again, I kind of touched upon it last weekend in the US, but the Mercedes car does just feel like it is on an absolute knife edge. Like, it feels so tricky to balance properly. And again, there was kind of skepticism around whether or not they were running the Mercedes car too low. Obviously, they got caught out with that in the United States last year, with Lewis Hamilton being disqualified from the Grand Prix afterwards. Luckily, that wasn't the case this time around. We had George Russell finish in the points. But both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell had big crashes last weekend. George Russell another crash this weekend. And it does just make you wonder, is there something wrong with the car? Because 3 big crashes in 2 weekends from drivers who are very experienced. You're looking at Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion. You're looking at George Russell, who's been, part of the Formula One grid for 5 seasons now. It does just feel like the Mercedes car just still isn't quite there. And I'm really worried because they looked so good just before the summer break. And I was really hoping that we'd have a 4-way battle next season in 2025. I really thought that all 4 of those big teams right now would be pretty much level pegging going into it. Maybe just look at where Mercedes are in the Constructors' Championship this year. They're so far off that top 3, and they're not helping themselves out. And obviously, George Russell's second biggest crash in 2 weekends. Mercedes again not looking super quick, and the balance looking a little bit off. Just worried that the Mercedes team could have another pretty appalling weekend. And then we go into Brazil, where last year they were horrendous. I think the Brazilian Grand Prix last year was maybe their worst race of the entire season. I know that the season before that was it 2022, where George Russell obviously picked up his victory, his first victory for Mercedes. But it's looking sketchy. It's looking like this triple header is going to be a pretty tough triple header for the Mercedes team. And I think they need that week off in between the Brazilian Grand Prix and the Vegas Grand Prix to sort themselves out a little bit. But that's my kind of summary of free practice 3 and bits and pieces. Going back to those free practice 3 times and going towards the bottom, Alex Albon was the quicker of the 2 Williams cars, seems to have got it back together again after Williams put that car back together again after a big shunt in free practice 1. Colapinto, I kind of have my eyes on this weekend. I just think after his drive last weekend was absolutely stunning. I'd quite like to see Colapinto again put in a drive. Maybe see him battle with Liam Lawson. That was what I really wanted to see. I wanted to see a battle between those 2. I just think that would be great. And I think when it comes to update the title, what's wrong with the title? Oh no, I clicked the wrong one. What have I done? What have I done? I've clicked the wrong thing. Have I clicked the wrong thing? I have clicked the wrong thing. Oops. Okay. Good point. Good point. God, it's all going a bit Pete Tong today, isn't it? Here we go. I've clicked the wrong live stream. That's all it is. Oops. Which also means that this has got the wrong description on it, doesn't it? Oh, goodness gracious. Right. Do this. Let's do that. Give me one moment. What have I done? What am I doing today? Goodness me. Right. Let me sort this out. Let me sort this out, lads. Let's take a moment. Okay, this one is the one that is live. This one I can delete forever, I guess. Sure. Right, that'll hopefully fix it. Let me just double check the channel. Goodness, what have I done? Oh no, this is all definitely my fault. There you go. We should have the right thumbnail and the right title and the right description for this live stream now. But possibly the chat on the wrong thing. Crash. Let's refresh that. Do this. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's pop the Drivers' Championship up. I think it's, why have I got two different chats? Oh god, I've really done it. There you go. Are they updating now? Comments are also not updating on the screen. Now they should be. Here we go. We fixed it. Have we fixed it? We might have fixed it. It may or may not have been fixed. Okay, let's do that. That maybe. Save that. Do this. Guys. Okay. Normal rules applying for live streams. Don't care about at the moment. No. Let's do. Thank you. Once I refresh, it updates. Yeah, maybe everyone just hit the refresh button. Just hit refresh. Then we'll be all good. Yeah, everyone's comments should pop up on the screen. Apologies, that was all my fault. Although I hadn't noticed for like 10 minutes there. That has now been fixed. You know, these late night streams, they get to you. I've done a full week's work. Other excuses that I can throw into the mix. Just, you know, didn't get a good night's sleep. Just worried, stressed. Other things. No, it's just completely my fault. I just clicked the wrong stream because I sort of, you know, plan these streams a little bit ahead of time, as I need to. And I think I clicked on yesterday's stream default setup. Therefore, it loaded like the title of yesterday's stream, the description of yesterday's stream, rather than today's one. So that was why it was not correct. Also, just gonna quickly load up my stream on that note, because we are only 8 minutes away from the start of qualifying. Thank you, Suhan, for forgiving me. I was saying hi over and over last stream. I'm sorry. But we've reset. We're ready to go. At least we noticed. At least I can't remember who popped it in the other chat. I massively appreciate that, mate. As to why it wasn't working. Who said that I need to update the title? Whoever you are, you're a god of men. Because I would have never noticed. Toyota has predictions. That is the final thing that we've got to go through. And I was literally about to before we had to quickly save the stream. The predictions for the weekend. You guys can get your predictions over on the community tab before the weekend gets underway. I want predictions for your winner, your podium, your surprise. That can be a good surprise, bad surprise, stunning surprise. Maybe a Fernando Alonso podium in his 400th Grand Prix. I want to know who you think is going to have the best weekend as a team, who you think is going to struggle the most, and which team is going to absolutely flop compared to expectations. Stream just turned in on me. Exactly. Well, no, we were actually in yesterday. I used all of yesterday's bits. But over on the community tab, you guys got your predictions in. Remember, if you want to get your predictions in, I put these out on a Wednesday on the community tab. The community tab is just also well worth getting involved in. There's often little quizzes, little bits and pieces that I ask you guys to help me out with videos and bits and pieces like that. It is all community based around here. I want the channel to reflect not just what I want, but what you guys want from this channel. Banana, who's always there. Absolutely love this man. He's like always first on the block as well. Podium, Max, Charles, Carlos. He's thinking a Red Bull Ferrari bonanza. Best team Ferrari, flop team Haas. could agree with that, to be honest with you. Surprise Albon, struggle Norris. I think Norris would be good here. Norris was pretty quick in Mexico last year. Podium Lando, Oscar Leclerc says platform boots. Best team McLaren, flop team Aston Martin. Surprise Liam Lawson. Lots of Maxes and Landos, as you'd expect. Charles Leclerc is probably the most informed driver, though. Charles Leclerc right up there in a lot of these predictions as well. Charles will be cooking tacos. I'm assuming that that's a positive, you know? Cooking up some tacos. He's doing a good job. Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen also for Showa. Winner Leclerc, Sainz Norris behind him. Best team Ferrari. Surprise Fernando. Struggle Verstappen and flop team Red Bull in front of Sergio Perez's home crowd. Sainz win would be great. I would absolutely adore a Carlos Sainz win. I was kind of hoping that he'd win last time out in Austin after he was super quick in the sprint. I was getting that kind of Carlos Sainz-y feeling. I was like, ooh, this is a Carlos Sainz weekend. It was one of the tracks that he really does love. I could see Carlos Sainz doing well in the US, and he did do very, very well. Don't get me wrong, it was a 1-2 for Ferrari. I was kind of hoping the one would be Carlos. Let's hope that Chocolate Chip Perez doesn't crumble in the race like last year. Oh, Chocolate Chip. I mean, I think that's a Kit Kat reference. Would you say Kit Kat is chocolate chip? It's a close one. I think either McLaren or Ferrari 1-2. Haas 1-2. P3 Hamilton, P2 Leclerc, Russell there as well. Podium Max, Oscar George. Lots of Leclerc love, lots of Lando Carlos in there. Less Max than I was expecting, to be fair. An Oscar win would be absolutely brilliant. Surprise Franco Colapinto. Is it a surprise anymore? Because he's just doing so well over and over again. Pretty wild prediction. Lando, Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen. Winner, Lando Norris, of course. Best team, Scuderia Ferrari. Surprise, Mercedes. Not so sure. Struggle, Williams. Yeah, it could be a poor track for Williams, this one, actually. They should be good. Like the really long straight, but maybe a bit windy, bit up in the air. Doesn't really suit the Williams team, does it? Podium, Lando, Charles, Max. It's looking pretty consistent. What are you guys saying in the... Kit Kat is not a chocolate chip, says David. Cuts in straight away. Why is there a fridge in my background? There is no fridge in my background. I wish. There's some Red Bulls there. None of them refrigerated. All of them out of date, we found out. If you were here for the 100,000 subscriber special, I drank 2 of those, and I still haven't replaced them. They're just empty cans, but you can't tell that from this perspective. So, unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to replace them because they are all out of date. All out of date. They've been in the background for way too long. But I did drink a couple of them, even though they were super out of date, and I'm still here to tell the tale. So it can't be too bad for you. We are going to get underway, though. Let's get our qualifying board up and running. Ooh, no. Let me quickly run this for a second time. See if there's been any radio messages from the drivers as of yet. Nothing coming through. So nobody in the car possibly getting set up at the moment. Okay. But we are ready and raring to go. Hello, Slowline Transporting. Evening. It started. It has indeed. We're about to get underway. The stadium section here in Mexico is just absolutely stunning. I do love the idea of it. The only problem is the cars have to go so slow through the stadium section. Like a really, really slow turn 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Like the whole thing really is just very, very slow. And I understand that you want to be able to balance it out and you want to be able to make sure that the cars don't crash into the stadium and cause any damage or kill anybody, but just maybe a little bit quicker would have been nice. Race with Dan No Skill when? He would absolutely demolish me if it came to like a sim race, to be honest with you. He is lightning quick in comparison to me, but it was an absolute pleasure having Dan on the channel. And also, if you haven't seen that, I released a new style podcast with Dan No Skill being the first ever guest. That was over on the channel. Also, an extra bonus episode that is available for Patreon and members only. You can sign up to the Patreon completely and utterly for free and get the audio of that podcast with Dan. Or if you want to see us chatting live and actually see our beautiful faces side by side, you can sign up for just £3 a month to become either a member of the channel or a Patreon member. Link down in the description though. Completely free to join. So join, give it a go, check out the podcast with Dan, see what you think. And if you do enjoy it, you can also then become a Patreon member for as little as £3 a month. Mallory is in the chat, absolute OG of the channel. Hello, Mallory. Just an idea, a driver mooning from podium. It's tough in a race suit, isn't it? Because it's a long way to go. You know, it's not just the trousers they'd have to do. They'd have to do the full zip over the shoulders, all the way down the body. It's a lot. It's a lot of effort to get the moon going with a race suit on. But I wouldn't put it past anybody. You know, if they really want to give it a go watch along form content to beat him. Oh, go watch long form content. I see. I was like, what on earth? They put an A in there for some reason. Let's go for it. Then the Stake Sauber boys look like they're going to be the first cars out on track. Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, the first drivers to join us in this first qualifying section. Ocon and Stroll just behind. Patreon is how much in euros? I don't know. Probably about the same, right? I think £3 is about €3. Maybe. I don't really know the exchange rate. Somebody Google the exchange rate from pounds to euros. To beat Dan No Skill. I don't know if I'd ever beat Dan No Skill. I don't think I could ever beat Dan No Skill at most things. A very, very talented young man. The new tyre compounds. I'm on a film set today, so I'm not 100% paying attention. That is cool, Sarah. What are you doing on a film set? Let's switch the question on you. Tell us more, please. The new tyre compounds, there wasn't really too much to talk about, to be honest with you. Obviously, Pirelli tested them during free practice too. And not all of the drivers were using the new tyre compounds anyway. So those drivers that didn't take part in free practice 1 because of the 5 rookies that were there, they were allowed to test this weekend's tyres as they were. So there was only a few drivers actually out there on the brand new style compounds. And there wasn't too much to talk about in terms of those new Pirelli compounds that they tested. They are for the 2025 season, so we'll have to kind of wait and see what the drivers think about them next year. Sergio Perez's dad, my absolute favorite Formula One dad, I think. Also, let's, open up the script for that this year. Who's your favorite Formula One dad? I think mine's got to be Sergio Perez's dad. Carlos Sainz Sr. is also very, very cool. You know, the fact that he's like a rally world champion, pretty impressive. So it's like, okay, I get it. Your dad's also a world champion in like a very cool motorsport. But Perez's dad, seems like a very lovely man. Just seems like he has the most love and affection for his son known to man, which is maybe why, Max Verstappen doesn't really get on with him. The opposite of Jos in every single possible way. But who's your favorite dad on the Formula One grid? Lando Norris's dad is quite cool as well. Obviously sells all the scooters to the drivers. But this isn't important. Shall we look at some fast lap times? Valtteri Bottas, first across the line with a 1:18.5 for the Stake Sauber team. It's not going to be amazing, I don't think. Zhou Guanyu 1:19.6 is certainly not going to be in the mix of the top 15 with that kind of thing. Doing script supervision and camera assisting. That sounds very cool. Are we allowed to know, like, for what? Is it a big movie? Sarah's on the set of the next Avengers. which is very humble. You know, Christopher Nolan just sitting next to her in the director's chair, just doing some script supervision. Lance Stroll goes for a 1:18.1. I'm buzzing today. I feel very tired, but also electric. Sergio Perez going fairly swiftly through the first sector in front of the home crowd. We'll be on board with him, I think, quite a bit throughout of this. Charles Leclerc, though, sets the real standard, gets into the 1:17s, a 1:17.8 from the Ferrari man. Lando Norris has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. Carlos Sainz goes quicker than his teammate at 1:17.4. Here we go. The times are starting to tumble towards things that I'm expecting to see. Unless you're Sergio Perez, who comes across the line at 1:18.5 from the Mexican. Splits the Alpine cars. Oscar Piastri also getting pretty swift out on track. Lando Norris, a fairly decent middle sector. He's still up on Carlos Sainz's time, but it is marginal. It's going to need a pretty solid final sector from Lando Norris to jump to the top of the timing sheets. Medium compound tyres on the Ferrari cars, though, and Lando Norris, a 1:17.2. So it was a very good final sector from Lando Norris. Goes purple there. Puts Carlos Sainz second overall. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll have gone fourth and fifth fastest. Oscar Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Colapinto, Verstappen just about to set some flying lap times. Tsunoda, Magnussen, Lawson, and Hulkenberg are the four drivers still in the pit lane. We are just looking for that bottom five here in the first qualifying session of the day here in Mexico. We will know who will start 16th and below on the starting grid. Piastri, not purple in either the first or the second sector, so not looking like he's going to get within touching distance of his teammates' time, and doesn't. Only goes 8th fastest with a 1:18.3, a second adrift of Lando Norris's flying lap time. And was there a little mistake from Piastri somewhere? We're looking at the onboard with him. Oh, he locks up. And all out of position for the next couple of corners as well. So that's where Piastri lost it. And unfortunately, Piastri is going to have to go all over again to get a better run at that one. Colapinto goes third fastest of anybody in the Williams car. A 1:17.8 from the rookie. And Alex Albon then declares his dominance. A 1:17.5 from Alex Albon, trying to bounce back after it's been a little bit of a discussion around this slump in form from Alex Albon. Colapinto obviously picking up another point in the US. Starting to put Albon under a bit of pressure to perform. Max Verstappen, though, is going to come across the line and go quickest of anybody. Purple in all three sectors and a 1:16.9. He's the first driver into the 1:16s here in Mexico during qualifying. Williams looking pretty solid indeed. Verstappen quickest. It's Felipe Drugovich, who was in the car during free practice one for the Aston Martin team. Well worth going back and watching free practice one for those 5 rookies. Couple of red flags that you can skip through, but it was fairly interesting to see those rookies out on track. Colapinto technically the quickest of them, although does he really count in the rookie free practices anymore, considering he does have these 9 races to his name at the end of the season. Tsunoda, Magnussen, Lawson, and Hulkenberg, the drivers that we are waiting to see put in a lap time before we can decide who is where in the final twos and fro's of this first qualifying session. Fernando Alonso looking to improve in the Aston Martin car. Does improve through the first sector, but it's at a couple attempts off Max Verstappen's first sector time. Obviously, Fernando Alonso's 400th Grand Prix weekend. An absolute veteran of the field. The most experienced Formula One driver ever. 2-time world champion going at it once more. Could easily become 500 Grand Prix. He sticks around for another 4 or 5 seasons. Fernando Alonso comes through the second sector, still only a couple attempts off Max Verstappen's time and improving. So Fernando Alonso is going to go quicker here, as long as the final sector isn't too shabby. Kevin Magnussen, 5 tenths off the pace through the middle sector. So the Haas trying to get itself clear of the bottom 5. And there is Fernando Alonso well clear of the bottom 5. Goes third fastest overall, 3 tenths off Max Verstappen. A very solid lap from Fernando. Here is Kevin Magnussen coming across the line to go 7th fastest with a 1:17.6. Tsunoda, Lawson, Hulkenberg yet to come. Tsunoda just coming down towards turn 12. Hulkenberg following him, just coming around turn 10 and 11. Liam Lawson with the final of the 3 across the start-finish line. He's just coming around turn 7. But here comes Tsunoda round the final couple of corners, expecting the RB car to be pretty decent. And Tsunoda is indeed goes quickest. Third quickest. Not quickest of anybody. Oh, Sergio Perez struggling with the brakes. Nico Hulkenberg goes second fastest of anybody. Couple attempts off Max Verstappen. Tsunoda and Hulkenberg once again looking like the cream of the midfield crop. Can Liam Lawson also get into the mix in his RB car? He does, and puts Piastri down into 16th spot. So it is Piastri, Gasly, Perez, Ocon, and Joe. Joe improves, but doesn't actually get out of that bottom 5. So still there. Need to improve once again. What does the question mark mean? Unfortunately, it means that the tracker isn't following the car correctly and doesn't know which tire compound they have come out of the pits on. I think the tire tracker for the Formula One teams is being a little bit off at the moment for some reason. Might reset that between the 2 sessions. Toyota absolutely flying once again, although Pierre Gasly has just joined the mix. He's gone second fastest in the Alpine. And Gasly did seem to come to life in Austin when it came to qualifying. Hasn't looked particularly ridiculously fast over the course of the weekend so far. But Gasly knows how to put in a qualifying session. And also, I think Gasly does like these races towards the end of the season. I remember towards the end of last year in the Alpine, he really came to life. I feel like the final 6-7 Grand Prix of the year are just tracks that suit Pierre Gasly down to the ground. And he's also gotten in a rhythm with the Alpine car post-summer break. Looks like he's having a very fun time. George Russell goes purple in the middle sector. Russell currently down in the bottom 5. Does need to improve and is looking like he's going to improve dramatically. Lewis Hamilton slow through the first sector though. Second sector improves on his lap times. That George Russell jumps up to 4th. That does put Lewis Hamilton into the bottom 5. But Hamilton likely to put Colapinto down in there. Just needs to improve by 14 thousandths of a second. And improves by much more than that. 1:17.3. That does drop Colapinto into the bottom 5 and jumps Lewis Hamilton up into 8th place. Colapinto, Ocon, Joe, Piastri, Perez. The drivers that need to improve. A lot of pressure on them now. Piastri obviously made that mistake on his first run, so there should be more pace inside of that McLaren car to come. Zhou Guanyu, not really a surprise that he's down there. I suppose you could say Esteban Ocon being 15 places adrift of his teammate is a bit of a shocker. Colapinto, though, right on the periphery of getting through. Charles Leclerc, one to be a little bit wary of, down in 14th place at the moment, as Oscar Piastri now goes quickest of anybody through the middle sector. He starts to come through the final sector. A bit of a bump and a bounce for Oscar Piastri, though, as he enters the stadium. Using those curbs to his advantage inside of the McLaren car. Around the final corner comes Oscar Piastri. And he goes up only to 13th fastest. It was a poor final sector from Oscar Piastri. Very poor indeed. And that is going to be an ouch. Lando Norris jumps to the top of the timing sheets again. George Russell on the radio. Are we safe? Negative. George Russell negative. Okay, explain, please. doesn't seem like he is very safe inside of that Formula One car. And the Mercedes team want him to go again. Russell comes into the pits for a fresh set of tyres, I'd imagine. Looking at Sergio Perez at the moment, he's 0.8 of a second off Kevin Magnussen's time in 15th. So, fresh set of tyres on Sergio Perez's car and a lap required from the Mexican driver in front of his home Grand Prix crowd. Colapinto jumps up out of those bottom 5 drivers. As I said, Charles Leclerc getting perilously close to the bottom 5. There was the mistake from Piastri, and that Piastri lap time was deleted. Track limits at turn 12. It looked like he was bouncing around from inside of the car. Looking at it from outside of the car, you can see all 4 tyres off the racing track. Cross that white line, and Piastri needs to go again. 3 minutes on the clock. Piastri can get back into the pits, but it's going to be a swift change of tyres. Or is he just going to go for it all over again? Nope, decides to keep these set of boots on the car. Piastri's going to go for another flying lap once more. DRS open for Piastri. Needs to improve. Was the quickest man out on track during free practice 3. Is now looking under a bit of pressure to perform. Is the youngster in the McLaren. Couple of race victories that have gone his way this year, though. Piastri lap time deleted indeed. Sergio Perez also keeping an eye on. Piastri doesn't improve through the first sector. And he's a 10th or so off the pace already. It's not looking good for Oscar Piastri. The McLaren team have risked leaving him out on that slightly scrubbed set of tyres. Piastri needs to go faster than that. Sergio Perez is improving, a 27.5 from Sergio Perez through the first sector. Charles Leclerc needs to have a little hurry up, though. Charles Leclerc goes purple in the first sector in the Ferrari, and he's just heard me say that. And it proves me wrong. Sergio Perez improves again in the middle sector. Piastri going really poorly through the second sector also. Piastri does not improve on his first or second sector times. He's going to improve his lap, but it's only 14 fastest for Piastri. That does not look like it's going to be enough. Charles Leclerc's going to cover score. Sergio Perez has also just gone 15th fastest. We're going to have some big drivers dropping out of this qualifying session. Charles Leclerc puts himself what should be safe up into 3rd spot, but that puts Sergio Perez down into the bottom 5 once again. And Sergio Perez, I don't know if he's on another flying lap. No. Piastri's out as well. Kevin Magnussen has come across the line, and Kevin Magnussen has jumped up into 4th place. There's a minute to go. Piastri isn't even on a flying lap right now. Colapinto is in the pits. Sergio Perez also looks out of this qualifying session. We're looking at Esteban Ocon here. Esteban Ocon could cause an upset for Colapinto too. Carlos Sainz comes across the line to go 2nd fastest of anybody, but we could lose 2 of the big 8 here in the first qualifying session in Mexico. Piastri and Perez looking out of qualifying. Unless lap times are deleted or things go their way, it's all over and done with for them. Colapinto drops down and is in the pit lane, so Colapinto is also going to be out of qualifying. Esteban Ocon now coming around. Could he put Lance Stroll into the bottom 5? We could see an Aston Martin, a Red Bull, and a McLaren drop out in the first qualifying session. Piastri comes into the pits. It's all done and dusted for him. Sergio Perez comes into the pits. The Mexican out in his home Grand Prix. Let's see then, Esteban Ocon coming around the final couple of corners, has improved in the first sector, improved in the second sector, and he's going to come across the line. It's not good enough. Stays 19th, and Lance Stroll sneaks through. Wow. Colapinto, Piastri, Perez, Ocon, and Joe, the 5 drivers out in the first qualifying session. 2 huge names drop out here in Mexico, and that has blown the Q3 qualifying wide open. It's a little bit like what we had last time around in the US. When you do lose these drivers early, just gives those opportunities. You're looking at Gasly, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Albon, Magnussen. They've all now got a shot at qualifying, not just in the top 10, but in a fully in a solid point scoring place going into tomorrow. Franco Colapinto already out of the car in the Williams garage. He does not look happy with his lap time. He was a 10th of a second off Lance Stroll. Piastri the same, a couple attempts adrift. Sergio Perez also 2/10 off the pace. Absolutely astounding here. Valtteri Bottas in Q2 is indeed something to celebrate in the Stake Sauber car. Bottas does usually go well here in Mexico, doesn't he? I remember him picking up some points a couple of times in Mexico in the sort of Stake Sauber Alfa Romeo cars as they are. Here we are. Lando Norris was quickest of them. A 1:16.5 from Norris. Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc, Magnussen, Gasly, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Albon, and Russell, the top 10. Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Valtteri Bottas, and Lance Stroll through, but do need to improve if they're going to get into Q3. 5 drivers, though, drop out, and we will not see again Colapinto, Piastri, Perez, Ocon, and Zhou. That is their afternoons done and dusted, and we won't see them back in a Formula 1 car until tomorrow's Grand Prix. A long time for them to mull over what went wrong. Also, it does give us an Oscar Piastri towards the back of the pack, which is sometimes well worth a watch. You know, could see Oscar Piastri scything through the midfield like butter tomorrow. But I'd much rather see him starting towards the top end of the grid. Hulkenberg podium tomorrow. It's not out of the question. If we lose another big boy, you know, if this was sort of top 10 go through, we'd have also lost Lewis Hamilton. That opens up 3 spaces in the top 8 that usually are not there. You know, I'm usually expecting the top 8, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens, 2 Mercedes. And then behind that, Fernando Alonso generally, although this season's been a little bit up and down. So usually, you know, you're talking about Magnussen, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Albon, those kind of drivers just battling for 1 point scoring position. When Perez does this and opens the door, absolutely opens up just an incredible Q3 battle where we're going to see 3, maybe 4 of these outside drivers in that Q3 session with something to fight for. Because I think sometimes as well, you have drivers, a lot of the time when Tsunoda's made it through to Q3 or Hulkenberg's made it through to Q3, they know they're going to be 10th. So it's just kind of like, well, they go out and do a lap for the sake of it. Now it's a real battle with these midfield cars. I really, really enjoy, obviously not when a McLaren drops out, but when some of the big boys don't make it through into the final qualifying session, I do think it just makes the race and the grid so much more exciting. McLaren Q1, Red Bull Q1. When it's Q2, a couple of minutes time, we're just setting up for Q2. Cars coming back around, getting into the garage, getting a fresh set of rubber onto those cars. Ready to go out once again. I love Toyota, says Blackbird. Again, they haven't actually done anything yet, apart from put some stickers on the cars. But by goodness, those stickers have made the cars quicker. It's been absolutely astounding to see the Haas's performances in Austin and now again here in Mexico qualifying. I'm hoping they can kind of keep that rolling for tomorrow. Real battle between maybe Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Magnussen. Be very interesting to see. Let's quickly get set up then and drop those bottom 5 out. Just once again, if you're joining us now, Colapinto, Piastri, Perez, Ocon, and Zhou, the 5 drivers to drop out in Q1. And some mistakes from Piastri and Perez. Just can't really give them much more than that. Mistakes were made and they dropped out of qualifying and didn't deserve the places that they are not going to have. Let's see what they can do from the back of the grid tomorrow. Sergio Perez gives a waves to the Mexican fans here at his home Grand Prix as he stepped out of the Red Bull car and is wandering down the podium. And as we get set up for Q2, if you could hit a like on the stream, that'd be absolutely amazing. I think the most likes we've got on a qualifying stream this year is about 300. 500 of you in the chat. Let's hit the like button for me. That would be absolutely astounding. It really does help the channel. Completely and utterly free for you and takes, what, 2 seconds of your life to hit that like button. And if you're enjoying these, we are live every single session, or competitive session, I should say. So we're live this weekend for the qualifying and the Grand Prix, but for Brazil, we're live for the sprint qualifying, the sprint race, the qualifying itself, and the Grand Prix on Sunday. And of course, we'll be live for every single competitive session for the final 3 races of the season as well. So hit that subscribe button if you want to join us in that. And also, if you want to hear more from me and get a little bit, or sort of help out the channel a little bit more, you can also become a member to the channel or sign up for the Patreon, and you get access to exclusive content and behind the scenes from the channel moving forwards. Thank you so much again. Let's get into Q2. Lando Norris versus Carlos Sainz was 1 and 2 in Q1. Lando Norris just having a little look at his lap times during Q1 and where he can improve compared to the Ferrari. Ferrari and McLaren trying to battle for the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull between them at the moment, but Sergio Perez not helping in that battle. All the way down in 18th. It was Hamilton, Alonso, Lawson, Bottas, and Stroll, the 5 drivers that need to improve. And Alex Albon is going to be the first man out on track. Alex Albon in that Williams car, looking very, very comfortable this weekend. After a big shunt with Ollie Behrman in free practice 1, has actually been quite positive about the car since then. EPK, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Massively appreciative. Trying to hit 110,000 before the end of the season if we can. Although not too long to go before that. 2025 has to have Behrman and Ocon. Correct. They do indeed. Alex Albon running around. You can see the Ferrari's actually running some scrubbed sets of tyres to begin with in this session. Ferrari gets another one too, I believe, in Leclerc World Drivers' Championship. It's going to be quite a tough one, I would say, for Charles Leclerc, but maybe, just maybe. I mean, if we look at the championship as it stands right now, he's a considerable margin off. I think it would also need a Max Verstappen DNF in there. Even if he were to win every single Grand Prix for the rest of the season, Max Verstappen hasn't dropped that many points over the course of the year so far. Alex Albon is now coming out and going for it. Oh, Oscar Piastri with Sky Sports. Yeah, made a mistake into turn 12, as we saw. A frustrating afternoon for the youngster. I think he knew he had more than enough pace in that car had he not made that mistake, and didn't really need to make that big of a mistake, or like didn't need to go into that corner that hot, if you know what I mean. Could have taken it a lot easier and still guaranteed himself in Q2. But just tricky to find the pace once you've made that kind of mistake, and then you're on a scrubbed set of tires, having to improve. The pressure is there. Just didn't quite happen, unfortunately, for Oscar Piastri. Push 200 likes. Thank you, the builder. Doing the best. Doing the job. Ferrari is cooking. Ferrari looking very, very good. Sort of since Monza, really. They brought that new floor, the new flexi wing, and since Monza has just been absolutely rattling through the Grand Prix. Maybe a slightly off weekend if you're being a harsh critic. In Singapore, they weren't quite there with sort of Max Verstappen, Lando Norris right at the top. But apart from that, it's been a Ferrari world that we've been living in for the last few Grand Prix weekends. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz also coming around. Charles Leclerc not purple in any of the sectors so far. Carlos Sainz quickest of anybody thus far in the first sector. Max Verstappen has come across the line with a 1:16.6. Charles Leclerc, though, a second adrift of Max Verstappen's time, although on used tyres. Carlos Sainz comes across the line at 1:17 dead, which is only just quicker than Alex Albon, who also put in a 1:17.0. Max Verstappen on track, on board with him. Was there a little mistake from the current World Championship leader? Just being very aggressive over the curbs as Max Verstappen trusting that Red Bull car, bouncing his way through that middle sector is Max Verstappen. And on the radio, rear tyres were a bit tricky in Sector 2. I mean, they will be if you absolutely rinse them through the corners like that, Max. Drifting around turn 10, Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, similar. Oh, Charles Leclerc almost loses it, actually. That's where the lap time was lost. Charles Leclerc got all out of shape after turn 9. Had to catch the car a little bit to Charles Leclerc. That maybe just cost him to drop a little bit of time compared to what he was expecting. Some more fast laps are now coming, though. Charles Leclerc's lap time deleted. Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Bottas out on track. Everybody coming around, starting their flying laps. Norris, Gasly, Russell, Hamilton, Alonso, Lawson, and Stroll also coming around on their outlaps at the moment, too. No sprint for this weekend, I'm afraid. Bottas points incoming. I think this is his one and only shot. If it's going to be a weekend, it's going to be this weekend for the Stakes Sauber under Valtteri Bottas to actually score some points, isn't it? It's one of his better Grand Prix weekends. Like, he's just quicker here in Mexico than other tracks. It's a track that he really does enjoy. And also just the fact that the engine deficit from other teams maybe opens the door a little bit to Stakes Sauber. Kevin Magnussen, 4th fastest overall. And 5 tenths off the pace. Hulkenberg nowhere close to his teammate. 3 tenths off the back of Kevin Magnussen. Here comes Valtteri Bottas. And he joins the back of the queue in 6th of the 6 drivers that have put in lap time so far. What about Yuki Tsunoda? Can he do any better coming around the final couple of corners? Tsunoda does go into 4th place, so he goes faster than both of the Hasses, but still behind Alex Albon's Williams. Lando Norris is the man to keep an eye on. He's just started his flying lap and is a couple of attempts up on Max Verstappen through the first sector, a 27.2 from Lando Norris through those first few corners. He's just coming around turn 6 up towards turn 7 now. Keep an eye on Lando Norris's lap times. See if he can get ahead of Verstappen. Russell and Hamilton also coming through the first sector in the Mercedes cars. Obviously, 6 drivers are left to set a lap time to really give us the scope of where we will be going into the final parts of Q2 and who will need to improve. Fernando Alonso goes 6th fastest, and Liam Lawson then jumps behind his teammate. Lando Norris goes quickest of anybody again in the middle sector, showing what that McLaren car does have this weekend. Lando Norris goes quickest by 3.5 tenths of a second. His teammate Oscar Piastri out, the sole McLaren now on provisional pole. George Russell goes 3rd fastest, 6.5 tenths off Lando Norris. And Lewis Hamilton can only go 0.04 of a second slower than his teammate and go into 4th place. Here we are, Lando Norris quickest then. Charles Leclerc lap time deleted, puts him at the bottom of the table. It's Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg, and Valtteri Bottas, the 5 drivers that will need to improve if they're going to drag themselves into Q3. As it stands, we'll see Lando Norris's McLaren, Max Verstappen as the sole Red Bull as well. Both of their teammates out in Q1. Just shows the disappointment, right? They are the 2 quickest cars out on track and their 2 teammates out of qualifying already. So then both of the Mercedes cars behind, with Carlos Sainz in 5th. And we'd also see Gasly, Albon, Tsunoda, Lawson, and Alonso join the teams at the top as it stands right now. You'd imagine Charles Leclerc is going to make it in there, but we're still going to have 4 spaces for teams outside of the big 4 to get into the top 10 to make Q3 a little bit of qualifying, a little bit exciting for those midfieldy cars, as well as for pole position right at the top of the grid. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing. Massively appreciate it. Heard McLaren is only truly dominant in high downforce tracks. Does Mexico count? Yes and yes. Yes and yeah. It's a slightly higher downforce track. It's got quite a few low-speed corners. You're looking at sort of turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. Very, very slow. It's a little bit quicker through sort of 7, 8, 9, although not super, super high speed. And then very low speed through turn 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 through that final sector through the stadium part of the Grand Prix track. So yeah, it does require some very, very high downforce areas. Although I wouldn't agree with them only being good on high downforce tracks. Like you look at Azerbaijan, where Oscar Piastri managed to come out victorious. It's a very, very high-speed track with a huge straight in Azerbaijan. Also, they were very quick in Monza. So yeah, I slightly disagree. Where's Leclerc? Unfortunately, lap time was deleted for Charles Leclerc. He went off at turn 2, I believe, and therefore lost his lap time, but will be back out on track. But is back out on track already, actually. Verstappen, the first driver out of the pits. Albon, second. Charles Leclerc is going to be the 3rd man across the start-finish line. Albon, though, on a fast lap already. Just joined. Sam Perez is already out. Not fun for your home Grand Prix, I can imagine. Just slow. What happened? Deleted lap time. No, just slow, unfortunately. Made a mistake. Very, very slow. Same with Piastri, just slow. And unfortunately made errors during their laps. Alex Albon comes across the line. Improves a 116.9 from Alex Albon. Moves him up into 5th place for now. But green through the middle sectors and the final sector for Alex Albon. Drivers now coming around to make their flying laps count. Yeah, it's one of the, yeah, exactly. Mexico high downforce, even though, you know, you've got that big straight. They also have to run slightly higher downforce because of the air being thinner. A bit weird, isn't it? What does the weighbridge mean? Great question. So the weighbridge is just as you enter the pits on the right-hand side, and drivers can be randomly selected to go to the weighbridge. It is a system where you roll your car onto it, and it takes the weight of the car with the driver inside. So it's a way of checking that the cars aren't underweight whilst they're out on track. And drivers are just randomly selected throughout qualifying to go to the weighbridge at various points. So when you come into the pits, you could just get a light flash in your face to say, go to the weighbridge, and you have to have your car weighed there and then. Charles Leclerc finally gets a lap time on the board, and it's a pretty decent one at that, a 116.6 from the Monegasque. And Carlos Sainz then comes across the line, is a 10th quicker than his teammate. So Lando Norris quickest with a 116.3 at the moment. Verstappen, a couple attempts to drift. Carlos Sainz, 1,000th of a second behind Max Verstappen. And then Charles Leclerc, a 10th off of his teammate as it stands. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton currently on outlaps in their Mercedes cars. But we're more looking towards the bottom end here. Fernando Alonso, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg, and Valtteri Bottas, the 5 drivers that need to improve. Liam Lawson, the man on the bubble at the moment. He was just 0.06 of a second faster than Fernando Alonso during their first runs in Q2. A minute on the clock. So this is it for the drivers. Hülkenberg and Magnussen improving through the first sector. It does look like they are going to put themselves, at least provisionally, up into the top 10. Lawson, though, has just come across the start-finish line. Max Verstappen just makes his way back into the pits. Here comes Fernando Alonso around the final corner as well. So keep an eye on Fernando Alonso's lap times. He's starting his final flying lap. Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc coming around the final corner. Russell and Hamilton are also going to be pretty close to coming across the line as the checkered flag drops. Here comes Kevin Magnussen, goes up to 8th fastest for now. Hülkenberg, though, coming around the final sector 2. There's a yellow flag in sector 3. I think it's Yuki Tsunoda, and it's a red flag. It's a red flag from Yuki Tsunoda, and he's cost not only him, but his teammate as well, because Hülkenberg got across the line. Hülkenberg goes up to 8th fastest. That puts Tsunoda and Lawson into the bottom 5, and Tsunoda has cost RB massively there. Liam Lawson was on a flying lap behind. It's also cost Fernando Alonso, who was on a flying lap. Lance Stroll was there too. Tsunoda is going to be out of qualifying, not only because he's in the wall, but also because he's 11th fastest in this Q2 session. The red flag is waved. Lawson and Alonso will be absolutely livid. But if you're a Haas fan right now, or a Pierre Gasly fan right now, you are absolutely ecstatic. Hülkenberg and Magnussen both through. Pierre Gasly in 10th place also. Stunning for the Haas team once again, but disastrous for RB and Aston Martin. As Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Alonso Stroll, they were all on flying laps and were all improving. Tough scenes for Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll fans. Valtteri Bottas, though, out of qualifying. So those 5 drivers, it's Yuki Tsunoda in 11th place. Let's have a little look at this onboard before we run through the rest of the drivers. Oh, just completely loses it on the entrance to turn 12. Doesn't even make the turn, and I think he just locks up. Locks the left front, gets on the rumble strips as well on the left-hand side of the track as he's going down towards turn 12. Doesn't make anywhere near the apex and almost just travels in a straight line rather than turning right. And tries to make up for it. Front left locks and Tsunoda into the barriers. He is indeed okay. He's not that huge of a shunt. You would imagine that the car will be absolutely fine and will be put back together before the Grand Prix tomorrow. But more frustrating for the fact that Tsunoda was improving, Lawson was improving, the RBs looked really set to be in Q3 this weekend. Fernando Alonso also will be very disappointed. Lance Stroll was on a flying lap. But it is Yuki Tsunoda in the barriers. How Q2 ends. The red flag dropped with 10 seconds to go on the time. So that is it. Lando Norris, the quickest man out on track in Q2. We'll see Lando Norris joined by Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, and Pierre Gasly for the top 10 shootout in Q3 in just a moment's time. The Yuki Tsunoda will start just outside of the points after that collision with the barriers in 11th spot. His teammate Liam Lawson just beside him in 12th. Fernando Alonso will start from 13th place. Lance Stroll 14th. And Valtteri Bottas in 15th place. Those 5 drivers dropping out of Q2. And they join the 5 drivers that have dropped out in Q1. Franco Colapinto starting in 16th spot. Oscar Piastri 17th. Sergio Perez at his home Grand Prix in 18th place. That's right, a McLaren and a Red Bull both out in Q1. Esteban Ocon 19th and Zhou Guanyu will start at the back of the pack. Goodness gracious me. does not bode well for Tsunoda. I mean, he had a pretty good race in Austin, apart from the fact that the strategy call just went completely against him. Liam Lawson ending up on the better strategy and was able to really use the RB's strengths in clean air. Tsunoda, though, yeah, especially on a weekend that RB should get the better of Haas this weekend. Like, realistically, RB is the more suited car to this track, and RB would have been looking at this weekend as an opportunity to gain at least 2 points to get back level with Haas in the constructor standings, if not more, to get back ahead of them, in the hopes that Haas maybe have a little bit of a poor couple of Grand Prix when that falls into their favor. Like Las Vegas should really be a Haas track rather than an RB track, that kind of thing. So it's interesting, and it'll definitely be some pressure on Tsunoda and Lawson to move forwards tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, Sally. I appreciate that. If you could hit that like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. I don't know how many likes we're on, actually. I haven't got it up on my screen at the moment, but we try and aim for about 300 likes on these qualifying streams. 600 people in the chat. Half of you hit that like button. Literally takes 2 seconds and helps me massively. And if you are enjoying this, hit that subscribe button as well. We are trying to hit 110,000 subscribers. But goodness me. Lawson sucks, says the Versatile. I don't know. Checo went out, the whole arena booed. Ooh, I didn't hear that on the coverage, but maybe not. Here we are then. Charles Leclerc looking at the onboard of his Ferrari, hugging the bollard at turn 2. And bouncing around because of it. I want to sleep now. Marshall's hurry. They're doing their best. It wasn't a huge shunt from Yuki Tsunoda. Just kind of lost it on braking. Front left seemed to lock up. And then from there, just the whole RB car seemed really unstable. You can see Yuki Tsunoda try and catch it. So it turns right, turns left to try and catch it, turns right again. And Lawson thanks the team for their effort. I think Lawson knew he had the pace there to get through to Q3, because he certainly, I don't know, he was a couple of attempts off in the first sector, but I think would have been in and around it. It would have been very close. Would have been nice to see. Is my full-time job YouTuber? Absolutely not. Like, not even close. But if you do want to support the channel and maybe make that a future for me, you can become a member to the channel, you can subscribe to the Patreon, or you can just hit the like button, the subscribe button, watch a couple of pieces of content. In fact, why not? Whilst we're waiting for the red flag to come, maybe just open a video of mine. I've got them all. I cut a few that I think you'll like, linked in the description. Open one of the videos, just let that roll. Just let it run on another tab. Even if you're not watching it, just let it run on another tab. let those advertisements play. I'm joking. All of your support is absolutely amazing. The way that this channel has grown in the last year or so has been astounding and just like taken me aback. So I am massively, massively thankful. But unfortunately, no, this is not my full-time job. Hence why sometimes I'm in a little bit of a rush coming into some of these live streams. It'll be kind of fun watching Oscar from the back. Exactly. Like, let's take the silver linings as McLaren fans. We might have Lando Norris on pole. So we might get to see Lando Norris lose the lead to Max Verstappen from there. And then we might get to see Oscar Piastri starting all the way back in 17th place. But at least, you know, cutting through some of the cars in front of him, getting to beat a Bottas and a Stroll, you know, the cars that he should be battling with on a race day. Lando Norris, though, 0.2 of a second up on Max Verstappen. Q3 is going to get underway fairly swiftly. The red flag is still technically out, so we're just waiting for that to be confirmed. Yuki Tsunoda's car has been removed from the circuit, but the Tech Pro barriers that he collided with just need to be put back together again, just in case another driver does decide to go off into turn 12 as well. What time is it in the UK? It is 10:49 p.m. Is that Singapore in the background? Yes. Yes, it is. It is indeed. Well, an old style Singapore. Technically, this bit doesn't exist at the moment. It will be back soon. Here we are then. Norris, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton. Our big six that will fight it out for pole position, you would imagine. With Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, and Pierre Gasly battling to be the master of the midfield here in this one. Charlie, hello mate. First watching 21 Austin Grand Prix. Complete newbie to Formula One. Rediscovered this channel. Crazy to see your growth. Thank you, Charlie, mate. Appreciate you coming back. Appreciate you dropping in. Lovely to see you again. Sure, Swain. Thing about pole on this track, probably the hardest track to start on pole with a massive run to turn one. Yeah, that is true also. So maybe Lando Norris doesn't want to start on pole. You want to gauge it. Every time Lando Norris starts on pole, it doesn't seem to go well. Often when Lando Norris starts on pole, whoever's in third place or fourth place ends up being in first. Like it was George Russell around the outside at Barcelona. It was Charles Leclerc up the inside in Austin. So maybe Lando Norris starts in third. Because that'll be on the right-hand side of the track. And then he'll go up the inside into turn one. Here we go. Qualifying today has been great. Absolutely loving the qualifying so far. Some real upsets. Shame we didn't really get to see properly how good the RB car was there. I think Tsunoda and Lawson would have probably made it through at the expense of Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen. Maybe even a Fernando Alonso in there as well. Shame for Fernando Alonso, obviously, on his 400th Grand Prix weekend, starting from 13th place. But the Aston Martin, I wasn't expecting a lot coming into this weekend. And to be honest, I think Fernando Alonso is slightly on the beach. I don't think you can blame him massively, you know, 400 Grand Prix, and he has absolutely nothing to fight for the rest of the season, right? He just has almost nothing to actually bother with. Like, he's just comfortably in the middle of the pack. Ends 9th in the driver's standings 100% of the time, if my simulations are to be trusted. One minute and 10 seconds until Q3 gets underway. 12 minutes of qualifying racing still to come. And a battle for pole position between the sole McLaren of Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, starting in 17th. Max Verstappen, also the only Red Bull still on track. Sergio Perez at his home Grand Prix will start in 18th tomorrow. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in the two Ferraris right behind them in Q2. And will be right in the mix, you would imagine, when it comes to pole position. Charles Leclerc being very on form at the moment in that Ferrari, just looks so comfortable. So since Monza and that upgrade, Charles Leclerc has looked really, really quick in that Ferrari car. Carlos Sainz also looking pretty decent too, but leaving at the end of the year, so it does feel like obviously any preferential treatment inside the Ferrari garage will go Charles Leclerc's way for the rest of the season, as you can expect. George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, doing a bit better than I was expecting, to be fair. Looking a little bit more likely to be in the mix for at least maybe the podium places. George Russell, obviously that spin in free practice 2, damaging his car once again. Not optimal. Lewis Hamilton also having a bit of a tough end to the season and a bit of a tough end to his Mercedes career. We are underway though, and Kevin Magnussen is going to be the first man to set the standard in this final qualifying session. Nico Hulkenberg, his teammate, joins him on track just behind. We're getting a little bit of a queue in the pit lane. Max Verstappen is going to be next. Lando Norris is going to come out right behind Max Verstappen. So we're going to get those lap times back to back. Do I think that Lando Norris wins the World Drivers' Championship? In a word, no. Here we go then. This could be it for Max Verstappen. Or it could be Lando Norris on pole here in Mexico. Alex Albon is going to come out just behind Lando Norris too. I think then the Ferraris are next in line. Oh no, sorry. Missed Pierre Gasly there in the pit lane. Gasly's going to come out behind Alex Albon. Then the two Ferraris. Charles Leclerc in front of Carlos Sainz. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton then waiting in the Mercedes garage. Gonna maybe try and wait for some clear air out on track. Go for a slightly offset strategy at Mercedes. As I said, Kevin Magnussen is going to be the man to set the standard. Magnussen now coming around turn 16 through to 17 is going to get us underway in Q3. Let's keep an eye on Kevin Magnussen's lap times in the Haas. Hülkenberg second across the line. Verstappen then coming around the stadium section. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton are going to come out on track at this point. So Russell is just going down towards turn 1. He's going to have to get out of the way of Nico Hülkenberg. Lewis Hamilton joining the back of the queue. So the Mercedes cars a lap down effectively and will be setting their lap times after everybody else to give us an idea of what the top 10 will look like going into tomorrow's race. Of course, another opportunity arises. 2 laps, you'd imagine, for majority of cars in this qualifying session. Max Verstappen versus Lando Norris through the first sector. It's a 27-2 from Max Verstappen through the first sector. Keep an eye on Lando Norris's first sector time to see if he can match the Dutchman. And it's a 27-5 from Lando Norris. So a couple attempts adrift of Max Verstappen already is Lando Norris through the first sector. Alex Albon is also on a flying lap behind these two. But here comes Max Verstappen through the middle sector. It's a 56.6 from Max Verstappen. 29.3 through that sector. Max Verstappen then continuing to thrive. Here comes Lando Norris through that middle sector as well. 29.5, so a couple attempts down. Again, Lando Norris through the middle sector. So he's going to be about 4 attempts adrift of Max Verstappen's time as it stands. Max Verstappen does a 116.3. Here comes Lando Norris then. He was 4 attempts off Max Verstappen through the middle sector. Can he improve through the final sector? He is 6 attempts off Max Verstappen's lap time. Nico Hülkenberg was the quicker of the 2 Haas's by 0.5 of a second. Here comes Alex Albon around the final corner for the Williams team. He should get in front of the 2 Haas cars, does indeed, but is a second or so off the pace of Max Verstappen's provisional pole time. Carlos Sainz has just gone quickest of anybody through the through the first sector. Charles Leclerc's come through the middle sector and is a 10th off. So Charles Leclerc looking very close to Max Verstappen's time too. The Ferraris now come into the fore. Pierre Gasly's put himself in the best of the rest slot ahead of the Williams and the 2 Haas's. But you'd imagine the Ferraris are going to jump up towards the top of the time and sheet. Charles Leclerc is just 0.05 of a second off Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz, though, through the middle sector, also improved. Can he come across the line and go quick? Yes! Carlos Sainz goes very, very fast. Almost into the 115s. Carlos Sainz with a 116 dead in his Ferrari car. Max Verstappen's lap time deleted. Max Verstappen's lap time was deleted. George Russell comes, though, in 3rd place then, and Lewis Hamilton goes 4th. That puts Lando Norris down in 5th place. Gasly 6th, Albon 7th, Hülkenberg 8th, Kevin Magnussen in 9th place. Max Verstappen comes into the pits. Let's have a little look at where this lap time was deleted. It was turn 2 for Max Verstappen. Yep, gets right up against the bollard, which is where you want to be to go quickly. As we saw from Max Verstappen, he was very swift through all 3 sectors. But it's just as he goes across turn 2, it is so marginal that like all 4 of those tyres just offs the racetrack for a moment in time, a blink of an eye that all 4 tyres are off the racing track for Max Verstappen. That is enough to get your lap time deleted. Carlos Sainz then on provisional pole here for Ferrari. We are really living in a Ferrari world at the minute. Ferrari come to life in this final third of the season. Charles Leclerc then looking for another 1-2 for the Ferrari team. Second behind his teammate. George Russell in third for Mercedes. Hamilton fourth for Mercedes. So a second row lockout for the Mercedes team. Lando Norris, the sole McLaren out on track, was only 5th fastest. Car definitely feels different in qualifying compared to P3. Maybe a good way or a bad way for Lewis Hamilton. I think a good way because he looks like he's on for a 4th place start tomorrow as it stands. Lando Norris, though, will be frustrated to be 0.8 of a second off the pace. Not what he would have expected coming into this. Was quickest in Q2, remember. Gasly best of the rest at the moment with a 1:17.2. Albon a 1:17.3 behind him. Then the Hasses side by side in 8th and 9th place. 17.5 from Hulkenberg. So a couple attempts need to be found from the German driver. And a really poor lap from Kevin Magnussen, which I'm assuming there was some kind of problem on for Kevin. He was 0.5 of a second off of his teammate. Carlos Sainz, though, in the Ferrari, absolutely stunningly quick. Nearly a 1:15 from Carlos Sainz. It's going to require a 1:15 to displace him from provisional pole. And Charles Leclerc is in the same car, but is 3.5 off of his teammate. 4 minutes to go on the clock then, here in Mexico. And the top 10 battle coming to a close. It is Sainz, Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Albon, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, and Verstappen battling it out for pole position here in Mexico. Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson will start in 11th and 12th place after Yuki Tsunoda's collision with the barriers at the end of Q2, causing a red flag, which cost him and his teammate an opportunity to get up into the top 10. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll will start 13th and 14th. Valtteri Bottas was the 15th man out on track, or 15th fastest man on track this time out in Mexico. He starts from 15th. Colapinto was the first man to drop out in Q1. He'll start in 16th place. Oscar Piastri starts in 17th with Sergio Perez on the penultimate row of the grid. And Esteban Ocon and Zhou Guanyu will start from the back of the pack. It's insane to see the gap between some of these teammates, isn't it? You know, Piastri down in 17th, Norris up in 5th, Ocon down in 19th, Gasly up in 6th, Colapinto down in 16th place, Albon in the top 10. Like, the real stark jump between a few teammates that dropped out in Q1 versus their teammates now battling it out in Q3. Hulkenberg podium chain. I mean, it's looking unlikely starting from 8th place tomorrow as it stands, but I love a dreamer. Can't say that. Do I have a girlfriend? I do. I do indeed. She's currently at work. I'm going to go and pick her up once this finishes, probably. She finishes at midnight our time. Here we go then. The final laps are going to come towards us. It's going to be Kevin Magnussen once more, who's going to be the first driver to set his final flying lap time. Magnussen comes across the start-finish line. Hulkenberg is just coming through the stadium section. Albon is going to be third across the line. Gasly fourth. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are going to be pretty early in the order. And Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen, and Lewis Hamilton. George Russell and then Lewis Hamilton is going to be the final man across the start-finish line. Kevin Magnussen now on his flying lap. Hulkenberg too. Alex Albon has just started his first flying lap and is on the long straight down towards turn 1. Gasly comes across the line. We'll see out of those 4 who can call themselves the master of the midfield going into next season. Next race tomorrow. Charles Leclerc is also starting his flying lap. Keep an eye on Charles Leclerc's lap times through the first few corners to see if he can get up towards Carlos Sainz, who is on provisional pole and has also just started his first flying lap. Max Verstappen comes across the line. Lando Norris just getting out of the way of Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen is now going to come around the final corner. That Toyota buff indeed going towards Kevin Magnussen. He jumps up into 5th place. Much better from Kevin Magnussen. Gets himself ahead of Lando Norris, let alone the other midfield cars. Hulkenberg coming around the corner. Let's have a look at Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz, though, goes quicker than himself through the first sector. So Carlos Sainz finding even more pace through that first sector, but it's very tight between the two of them. 0.03 of a second between them. Alex Albon jumps in front of Pierre Gasly for now. Nico Hulkenberg actually didn't improve by too much, stays in 9th. Carlos Sainz is actually improving even more through the middle sector. Carlos Sainz is on an absolute screamer at this moment in time. He's purple through the first sector. He's purple through the second sector. He's going to do it, is Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc still 0.2 off of his teammate. Carlos Sainz, though, comes around the final corner and goes even quicker. He's into the 115s. A 115.9 from the Spaniard is absolutely stunning. What a lap time from Carlos Sainz. Here comes Max Verstappen. He gets second fastest. He's a couple attempts off Carlos Sainz, but starts on the front row of the grid. Lando Norris has gone purple through the middle sector. It's going to be pretty close between Norris and Sainz. Can he get there? No! He's 3rd fastest. He's going to start on 3rd for tomorrow's Grand Prix. It is an absolutely belting lap from Carlos Sainz that nobody's getting even close to. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton have both not improved through the first sector and are not looking incredibly quick through the middle sector either. George Russell then, is he going to be able to get further than 5th? No. George Russell comes across the line 5th fastest. And Lewis Hamilton, I think he's going to stay in 6th. Does indeed stay in 6th. So it is going to be Carlos Sainz starting on pole in the Ferrari. His final season with Ferrari. And maybe another victory on the cards for Carlos. Max Verstappen will start beside him in 2nd place. Lando Norris in 3rd behind his title rival. Charles Leclerc in 4th. A real mix in the top 4. Any of those 4 drivers could win the Grand Prix tomorrow. Hopefully a proper battle between those 4 for tomorrow's Grand Prix. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton will start side by side for Mercedes on the 3rd row of the grid in 5th and 6th. Kevin Magnussen, the master of the midfield this time around, 7th place for Kevin Magnussen tomorrow, with Pierre Gasly starting beside him in 8th, Alex Albon in 9th, and his teammate Nico Hulkenberg in 10th place. But all 4 of those drivers starting in the points. Yuki Tsunoda will start just outside the points after his crash in Q2, left him and Liam Lawson 11th and 12th fastest. Then we have Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll starting 13th and 14th. Valtteri Bottas was the final driver to drop out in Q2 in 15th spot. And the first driver to drop out in Q1 was Franco Colapinto in his Williams. Oscar Piastri and Sergio Perez make up the penultimate row of the grid. Esteban Ocon 19th, Zhou Guan Yu in 20th place. My goodness me, we are set up for an absolute barn burner of a Grand Prix tomorrow here in Mexico. I absolutely cannot wait. And we are going to be live once again for it. Hit that like button if you have enjoyed the stream. Hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed it as well. And so you can join us tomorrow for another live stream here in Mexico. And of course, if you want to support the channel anymore, you can become a member of the channel, which gives you access to bonus content, or you can become a Patreon and get access to that bonus content through Patreon instead. You can sign up as a Patreon member for free and get access to the bonus mailbag episodes in terms of audio, completely and utterly for free. And if you enjoy them, you can also get access to the video versions of those mailbags by paying as little as £3 a month. Thank you all so much again. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Carlos Sainz, for an absolutely stunning lap in the Ferrari. And I'll see you tomorrow.